Good afternoon. It is November 1st, the day after Halloween. This is Jason Dean at Film Fanatic, YouTube. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe to my channel. Again, I go, it's like I always usually start off these shows. I want to thank everybody for their support. And it's been cool. The shows have been growing more and more. And I've been really excited. One of the things I've been really uh, taken aback by certain videos I've been putting up have gotten lots of views, and there were a few videos that I have that now have about 900 views. So that's pretty cool that like people are actually kind of checking out this weird little thing that I do. So I really dig it. Um, and Yeah, I hope everyone had a good Halloween. Um, it's best time of year. I love it. I'm not a fan of like say the colder climate, but the Halloween season for me is my favorite time of the year. I love Halloween to death. It should be more officially. It should be officially recognized as a holiday. It doesn't have to come once a year, but I kind of celebrate Halloween year round here at the Film Fanatic headquarters. So yeah, basically what I did this weekend is I went to I played at two different parties. Played at a party with my friend Vince Gabriel and Glenn Dubois. We played a show on Friday, a Halloween party, which was a lot of fun. And then on Saturday, I played. Um, Basically, all I did is I had a couple of masks that I wore. And sometimes one of the things, too, is it's a challenge to, particularly around the quantum thing, is we we kind of treat every show that we do with that band, regardless if it's Halloween or not, as like a costume kind of event or party where I use a lot of masks. And a lot of the time when I'm searching for masks that I can use, I try to find a mask that I can wear with my glasses. Because without my glasses, I'm pretty blind. I can't really see anything. So one of the factors that I do when I acquire some new masks for that band, or when I'm testing out some new masks or masks that I've never used, is if I can do that, because if without that I can't really see anything, so I'm basically blind. So it's pretty funny. So same thing happens. I noticed playing drums in a band with a mask or makeup. It can be, it's a lot of fun to, kind of like play a different character, but it's also hard because it can be disorienting and you can't really see and those kinds of things. And so Saturday I played another show with a band, with the band I'm in, Split Willow, which is, that band's been has had a great run this year. Probably that band has probably been the most the busiest of the bunch, and we played our final show of the season, or at least that we have booked for the year, on Saturday, and that was a regular like full on Halloween party and lots of great costumes, and that was super fun. I dressed up as Santa Claus, which I thought would be kind of funny and different. So I'd had this idea a few years ago for just different outside the box ideas for costumes, and I was like, you know what? Wouldn't it be kind of cool if like somebody dressed up in like a real traditional old school Santa costume and just played Santa Claus? I thought that would be kind of cool. So I did that on Saturday, and that was pretty funny. I remember I didn't tell anybody in the band what I was going to be, and so I waited till last minute. I was like, no, you'll see. I'm not going to tell you guys. Everybody else kind of had said what they were going to be, and everybody looked great and fantastic. But for me, I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything to anybody. I'm going to, you know, try to keep a surprise for whatever it is. And so I decided that day on Saturday in the afternoon or in the morning, I was like, okay, I have this really cool Santa Claus costume or outfit that's like full on, the pants and the belt and the wigs and the whole thing. So I decided to do that, and I brought everything to the gig. And then so like the last minute, the last maybe 20 minutes, half hour before we played, before we were scheduled to play, that was when I decided to change. So I brought all this stuff in, and then I snuck out to where the bathroom area lounge room is, and changed over there. And then I came walking out, and there was like a few people there that had come a little bit early, and the band was there, of course, and a couple of the band's friends. We were just kind of they were all just kind of hanging out, and I remember walking out to where the stage was, and I remember hearing like pockets of like laughter all throughout the room, like people were laughing, and I could hear it like throughout the room, and it was great. It was pretty funny because I thought like people know that, obviously I'm a huge fan of horror, so they were expecting me to wear like some kind of like scary horrific costume, and here I come out as Santa Claus. So I thought that was pretty funny. But the show was fun, and it was our last show for the season. And then on Sunday, I went to a concert. I went to go see Modest Yahoo, who is a really great reggae singer. I've been following his career for a long time. And so I went to that on Saturday with some friends and down in Portland. And then Halloween itself was kind of anticlimactic, which was a little bit sad. But on Halloween, I just basically went to work like I normally do. I taught a lesson in the morning. Um, I was dragging butt because I got home super, super late from Portland, so I only had about 3 or 4 hours of sleep in me. Um, Slept for a little bit, got up, taught a lesson, relaxed for a little bit, and then I went to work, and then I had a rehearsal later that night that we kind of needed to do. I was kind of not wanting to do it, but we needed to do it, and it was on Halloween, and we went till about 9:30. But I have a couple other friends, Jillian Reed and Danny Richmond, who were usually every Halloween we always do something really fun. Like we've always had parties or something, for Halloween because they're really into Halloween too. And so, but being that didn't have the time to really do that, we just decided to get together for some drinks and stuff, and we ate. Um, Basically, I went over there with a mask on, and we ate a ton of candy and drank beer and just kind of hung out. So it was still fun anyway, but it was not what we normally do for Halloween, but it was still great. So yeah, and and I also went to Blue Moose on Sunday, which was fantastic, and I got a whole nother great batch of movies. So I'm super excited to dive into those. So very, very cool. I went to the Blue Moose in Brunswick, and that one's great. They have a really great selection of exploitation movies there. It's a really good shop. And they have a really good music selection. I'm really impressed with that place. I'm gonna probably go there a little bit more often. It's further away. It's about an hour and 20 minutes away. It's like the halfway point between here and Portland. So it's a little bit out of the way, but it's a great shop. It's a great shop, and you literally, it's like you pass it almost, or more or less, you bypass it when you're on your way to Portland. So it's basically, right there in Brunswick, and it's like the halfway point. But very cool place. So I finally, one of the movies that I had not watched yet since I bought my last trip to Blue Moose, which was like a few weeks ago. I went to Blue Moose, and I bought a bunch of movies that I have reviewed on the show. One of the movies was The Lamp, tremendous movie. So I got this other movie called Thriller, A Cruel Picture, and it stars Christina Lundberg, and this movie is just spectacular. Um, Total grindhouse sleaze to the max. I mean, just such a great movie. I never heard of this movie before. I had seen it in the store, and I read the cover, and it comes with, there's hours. There's literally 2 discs on here. It's got 2 different cuts. It's a Swedish movie, and it came out in 1973, and it's labeled as an action thriller. And it came out in 1973. It's a Swedish film, and there's 2 cuts of the film. There's one that's about an hour and 48 minutes, and then there's another version that's about an hour and 25 minutes. And the Swedish version is the one that I watched, and that's the one that's uncut. And then there's also the American version where it has dubbed English on it, which I eventually will watch. But generally, I try to watch especially when it comes to foreign movies, and like the last year or so, I've been buying a lot of Italian movies, but I've also been buying some German films. I've been buying, tons of these great exploitation movies, and I've been buying more foreign films. And I always try to go for the ones with the subtitles. Like if I can get it in the original, like if it's Italian, I'll try to get it with the original Italian language or speaking form and with English subtitles. I love the dubbed versions too because they add a little bit of a cheesier factor to the films. And a lot of movies are just not released that way. But there's quite a few that I have that you can watch them in their original language with English subtitles. And I noticed too, even outside of this genre, like say just foreign films in general, um, the translation is very different. And I feel like a lot of the times the translation is complete can be completely off. Like the narrative of the story could be totally different. The first time that ever happened to me, way back when, I remember seeing that movie, Ang Lee's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is an amazing martial arts movie, just an epic movie. And I remember seeing two versions of it where I watched there was like a dub version, um, like an English version, and then there was also a version where you could watch it in Mandarin, the native language, or and also with English subtitles. And I noticed that the storyline was completely different if you watched the two different versions, and that you actually missed and got a lot less of what the story was, and even like the cohesiveness of the story if you watched the American version that was like say dubbed or didn't have the English subtitles and it wasn't in the original language. So since then, every time I get a foreign film, I'm always seeking out. I have no problem. Some people have hangups about reading subtitles, but I kind of enjoy it, and it's never a thing that bothers me. Um, but I generally, so I always go for that. And this movie has two versions of this film. There's the American version that's dubbed, like I said, and then there's the original Swedish version that is in Swedish, but it has English subtitles, and it's longer. And it's the version I watched is the apparently the uncut director's cut, and then the other version, which I probably will eventually watch, but I haven't watched yet. Eventually down the road I will. Is the American version where I believe it's cut down by quite a bit. There's quite a bit of time cut out of the film, and I think some of the scenes in the film are cut down, especially the violence. It's because it's very violent and it's very um, incredibly sexual. So I think some of those scenes were cut out, and it's dubbed. So I don't really have an interest to watch it, but I will watch it at some point. But the Swedish version is just amazing. And this film, like I said, it came out in 1973. The packaging is amazing. There is like probably 2 to 3 hours of special features about this movie. And there's a really amazing interview with Christina Lumberg, who is the star of this film. Um, amazing movie. It's it's the story of it is basically this woman who gets taken captive, and she's sold into this world of prostitution and also like drug addiction. Her captors kind of induce her to become a drug addict so they can kind of control her, and she becomes like essentially a sex slave prostitute. But then eventually she breaks free, and she's kind of enslaved to these men, and like a caged animal. And it's awful, like what they do to her. It's like it's really bad. There's a rape scene, or rape scenes in the movie that are just like horrendous, and I was shocked because I guess reading about this and seeing the interviews with Christina Lundberg, because her background, she did a lot of adult movies, and the director, um, who created this film and directed it, um, Bo Arn Vibinis, he had, I think, a background in the pornography industry. So there's like scenes in this film where, even though uh, it's incredibly well, it's hard to watch, but there's like full on penetration, and you see bodily fluids, and I was shocked by that. And I guess what they did for those scenes was they used actresses that were actual porn stars for those scenes, and it's not done in a way of where they're trying to make it because it's not a sexy scene. It's not a uh, there's nothing positive about it. It's just really horribly nasty, and I didn't see that coming. I was shocked because so on one point, I think what qualifies a movie to say be a pornography film as opposed to like movies that are say you have kind of divisions of those kinds of films. You have like or different levels like especially in the world of exploitation movies where you have like generally most exploitation movies are like they always have some kind of sexual content to them and they always have some kind of deranged quality about it. So there's always like this element of the movies are very very sleazy, which I love, and are typically pretty gory and violent, which I love. And so there's always there are films that are called like sex exploitation where the whole story around is around centered around these sexual acts or this story that involves lots of sex. So that's kind of part of the story. So it's like sex exploitation. But typically, a lot of those films are what you would quote unquote consider to be like softcore porn films, where basically it's kind of like porn that you would see in a hotel room, where there's no actual they don't show scenes of penetration or ejaculation or bodily fluids, and there's no penetration. So usually a lot of the things are cut and edited, but they can imply a lot of things and show a lot of things. Lots of nudity, kissing, but there's no like scenes of penetration. And usually where the porn thing fits into the whole thing is like if there are scenes of where they show full on penetration or bodily fluids, that's kind of considered to be porn. Um, so this film has that quality, and I was really shocked. Particularly, it's around a rape scenario, and so that was shocking. So I would consider like that element of the film where it definitely is. It's a total sleazy exploitation film. It's uber violent, um, super trippy and wild. But they do have these scenes where there's like full on penetration, and I was like really shocked. Where I was like, oh, this is suddenly this movie is could be qualified as a porn, even though it's not set up that way at all. And I saw an interview with the filmmakers, and they said that the reason that they decided to go there was to really give you a sense of what this character was going through and the terror that she was going through. So it's pretty rough. But basically, the story is about her going through these horrible situations, and she ends up breaking away and getting out of this situation. Then uh, she starts all this training in martial arts, and she becomes an expert martial artist. She also becomes an expert at firearms and guns, and she also becomes an expert in driving. Um, and so the whole story is basically centered on her breaking away from this like horrendous situation, and her going out and killing all of the people that were responsible for her enslavement. And it is uh, just the only way to describe it is it's just badass. Like it's unbelievable. And the way the film is shot is just it's gorgeous. Like the cinematography, it's all like shot in 8 millimeter, and the transfer of this on Blu-ray is just like unbelievable. The music is just incredible, um, and the kills are amazing. Like there's all of these scenes of where this all the essentially all the scenes of violence are slown way down, so the kills are like really excruciating and painful to watch, and they're long and they're all slowed down, and particularly around the time period that this film was had come out in '73, still has a very '60s element, so it has a very psychedelic element to it. But tremendous movie. I'd never seen this before. I was completely blown away by it. It's an amazing movie. Um, and there's a really great interview with Christina Lumberg, who's the star of this film, where they she had gotten asked. She was in Europe doing press for this film because there was a resurgence of the film it initially was banned, and then it initially came back, and it didn't get any distribution. But it had, when it was out for a brief time, when this film did come out, it was a commercial. Commercially, it was actually really big, and it made a lot of money, more money than even commercial, bigger Hollywood films at the time. But because the content was basically like, swept under the rug and taken out of the rotation, so it went into this kind of obscurity, and then it came back, and now it's like, it was in 2017, I believe. It was the extended cut was put into the Cannes Film Festival, so it got this like second life to it, and now it's like on Blu-ray. And there's a really cool interview with Christina Linberg where she talks about how she had gotten a phone call from the people who were working with Quentin Tarantino, and Quentin Tarantino was apparently like a huge fan of this film, and she said that like he went out of his way to meet her, and he had like talked with her for quite a while, saying that this movie was like one of his favorite films of all time, and that this film really had an influence on him. And I can kind of see that. I can see how this film really had an influence on his work because of the grittiness of it, and it's incredibly violent, but it's in the style, the way it's shot. Uh, the movie, it made me think of mostly of Quentin Tarantino's movies, and who I love is the Kill Bill movies, particularly Daryl Hannah's character, because she has an eye patch, and the central character in this has an eye patch, and she's incredibly violent and just incredibly badass, and doesn't takes no prisoners. And and it reminded me of that. I was like, oh, okay, this totally, we could see this totally being an influence on Tarantino's work, particularly around the Kill Bill movie. Um, and and again, it's like the action is amazing. There's all these great car chase scenes in it, pretty phenomenal. And there's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of things of where she's like tracking these guys down. So there's a lot of mystery and intensity around that. It's a great story, amazing character, and seeing her arc as a character where she kind of transcends this horrible thing that she comes out of is pretty amazing. And and the action sequences are fantastic. The fight sequences are amazing. The kills are amazing, and the cinematography is just phenomenal. I love this movie to death, and I'm really excited about watching this again. So, yeah, I can't recommend this enough. 1973. It's a Swedish film thriller, a cruel picture, and the package is amazing. Like, it's got the two discs on it, the director's cut, and then the regular theatrical cut, and then it's got literally hours of interviews. The second disc, I finished the first disc yesterday, and it has a 45, 50-minute interview with people who were involved with this film. That's fascinating. And then the second disc has interviews with Christina Linberg on it that are like 2 or 3 hours, and it's pretty fascinating. But and I got this at a really good price. But this is like one of the best '70s exploitation movies I've seen. Amazing. So I can't recommend this enough. Thriller, a cool picture. So this is Jason Dean. So thanks again for your support, and we will see you next time. And happy November 1st. Peace.